The hollow guest. They said Renfield had died decades ago after the collapse of the mines, but some stayed, too stubborn, too lost, or too afraid to leave. Among them was Elsie Moran. Elsie lived alone at the end of Larch Lane, in a tilting house with yellowed curtains and floors that moaned under each step. The house had been her parents', and before that, her grandparents'. No one truly owned houses in Renfield. They simply lasted longer than the people inside them. The trouble began with the knocking. It started one Tuesday night, just after midnight. A slow, deliberate knock, 3 taps, at her front door. Elsie had been reading in bed, the words blurring together under the dim bulb. She froze. No one visited any more, not after dark, and certainly not after midnight. The knocking came again. 3 slow taps. She pulled on her robe, clutching it tight at the neck, and crept to the window that overlooked the porch. She peeled back a corner of the curtain. The porch was empty. No figure, no movement, just the thick, suffocating mist swirling around the dead porch light. The knocking came a third time, louder. Elsie's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She swallowed, steeled herself, and called out, "Who's there?" No answer. Only the mist shifting against the broken fence. After several minutes of silence, she backed away from the window, hands shaking, and locked the door with a trembling click. She didn't sleep that night. The next day, the town felt wrong, off kilter, as though the world tilted slightly sideways. People hurried along cracked sidewalks, their heads down, refusing to meet one another's eyes. At the general store, old Mr. Hargreaves looked up from behind the counter, his face drawn and pale. "You heard it, didn't you?" he asked quietly. Elsie hesitated. "Heard what?" "The knocking." She stared at him. "Whatever you do," he said, leaning close enough that she smelled the sourness of his breath, "don't let it in." He said no more, just scanned her bread and tea and watched her leave with eyes that seemed almost too wide, too bright. That night it came again. 3 slow knocks. This time Elsie didn't move. She sat rigid in the armchair by the fireplace, the embers dying low, her hands gripping the arms of the chair. The knocking repeated, slower, heavier. The sound filled the whole house, echoing along the narrow halls and into the bones of the walls. The floor beneath her seemed to pulse in rhythm with the knocks. 3 taps, then silence, then, "Elsie?" A whisper right outside the door. It wasn't a voice she recognized. It sounded thin, hollow, like something imitating a voice rather than truly speaking. Elsie, let me in." Her stomach twisted, her eyes prickled with hot tears. She bolted from the chair, running to her bedroom, slamming the door, locking it behind her. She crawled into bed, pulling the covers to her chin, trembling like a child. All night the house creaked and sighed under invisible footsteps. By the third night she was unraveling. The knocking started at dusk, before the last light slipped away. Always 3 knocks, always followed by her name, crooned in that hollow, inhuman whisper. Sleep was impossible. She ate little. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, mouth drawn tight. When she ventured into town, the people seemed even more brittle, hollow themselves. Conversations fell into strange pauses. Hands shook as they bagged groceries. Elsie noticed something else, too. Houses with salt sprinkled along the thresholds, crosses made of twigs tucked into windows. The signs of a town at war with something unseen. She asked Mr. Hargreaves, pressing him until he gave her a shaky answer. "It's not new," he whispered. "It comes when the town gets too empty, too forgotten. When the shadows grow long, it comes looking for someone to let it in." "And if you do?" Elsie asked, throat dry. He only shook his head, lips trembling. "Don't." The fourth night, the knocking grew impatient. The blows rattled the door on its hinges. The whisper grew louder. "Elsie, I'm cold. Let me in." She sat hunched on the floor in the hallway, hands over her ears, rocking, tears streaming down her cheeks. The air turned icy. Her breath misted before her face. And then a new sound, scraping, as though long clawed fingers dragged themselves down the wood of the door. She pressed her hands harder to her ears, whimpering. The lights flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed her whole. In the black she heard it moving. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Somehow, inside the house. At dawn, she awoke sprawled on the floor, exhausted, hollow. Somehow, she'd fallen asleep despite the terror. The door was still locked, no sign of forced entry. Yet the house smelled wrong, like rot and damp earth. She decided, then and there, to leave. She packed a bag, fumbling with numb fingers, throwing in clothes, the last of her food, her mother's locket. She didn't know where she would go, only that she had to leave Renfield. Before the sun fully set, she was gone, driving her battered old car through the mist, heart hammering in her ears. She didn't notice the figure sitting in the back seat until she had driven 3 miles out of town. She caught its reflection in the rearview mirror. A pale, grinning thing with hollow pits for eyes, its mouth too wide, too thin. "Thank you for letting me in," it whispered. She was found 3 days later. Her car crashed into a tree, door hanging open. No sign of Elsie, just an empty, battered vehicle, mist curling through the broken windshield. And in the empty driver's seat, 3 long, bloody scratches carved into the leather. The people of Renfield shook their heads, mourned her quietly, and at midnight, at the end of Larch Lane, a new house began to echo with 3 slow knocks, waiting for the next one to open the door. The end.